And we have Sandy Reese here with us from Get Fully Funded, and I'll let her tell you about herself, and then she'll get started.
All right, fantastic. Are we ready? Who's excited? We're going to be talking about fundraising. Right? Oh, look, Taffy's here. She's going to help us out. So you guys, I think a lot of folks know who I am. Maybe you've heard me speak at conference before. If you haven't, I'm Sandy Reese. I am, oh gosh, a veteran fundraiser is probably the nicest way to say it. And this is one of my foster fail kitties. Her name's Taffy. Why in the world do I have a long hair cat? I don't know, but I do. She's very sweet. She likes to be on camera. We're going to talk about fundraising today. All right. Can everybody see my slides all right? It says Fundraising Accelerator. All right. Perfect. Perfect. I'm going to encourage you to play along with me. This is not a ginormous group. So the good news is we're going to have space for some Q&A. So if there's something on your mind, type it in into the chat. I am used to looking at the chat as I go. I have a lot of ideas that I'm going to throw at you today. Okay, so get ready to take some notes. Because what I want to talk about is what is working right now for fundraising. I know that it is not the easiest thing to raise money, and I want to see if I can simplify it for you some and give you some ideas that you can walk away with today and use them right away. So this is me. I was thinking the other day, Diana, how many years I've spoken at the conference, and I can't remember. It's been a lot. So to me, it has been a lot. Virginia Federation of Humane Societies feels like home to me. I live in Tennessee, but I've been in and around your group so much and have so many friends. It feels like home to me. I've spent probably 25 years, 26 years in the nonprofit world, and most of that in fundraising. I've been a development director. I have been a board member. I've been a volunteer, and now as a coach and consultant, I've seen it from all different angles, and I've seen a lot of stuff that works and things that don't work. So I want to share some of that with you today. So you are in the right place, my friends. If you're saying to yourself, "Ooh, times are tough." Is anybody feeling that? Yeah, a lot of our clients are feeling that way. The economy is a little unpredictable and a little precarious, and goodness knows there's some new crazy thing happening every day. And we find that in some cases, some donors are shrinking back and not giving as often, not giving as much, but you still need money. You still need money to pay for existing programs, or maybe you've got some new thing you want to start. You want to hire staff or pay yourself. That is okay to want to pay yourself, and I highly encourage it. Or maybe you've got vet bills to pay, you need a transport van, or something else equally important. All of that is okay to want, and hopefully I'm going to show you some tricks today that are going to help you start to raise that money that you need. So for those of you who are new, this is me. And Lucy, she has the best ears. One up, one down. Great dog. As I said, I've been doing fundraising coaching for a long time. I've been a trainer for about that many years as well. I've written a few books. I write a blog, and probably the most important thing is I love animals. I have been on the board for a horse rescue in my area. I have volunteered for lots of shelters and small rescues and fostered. I've had some foster successes and foster fails with Taffy and her sister. I don't know where she went. Maybe we're good. All right, so what I do now, I started Get Fully Funded in 2005, and I spend my days helping people raise money. This is all I do all day long, is I talk to people and give them ideas and look at their materials and such. Here are some of the organizations that are in the animal world that we have worked with and are working with now. I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the kinds of organizations that we help. All right, so let's jump in. Are we ready? Are we excited? We're talking about fundraising. Okay, I know that for some people, fundraising is the F word. And it's a necessary evil, and I get that. I get that. I was not thrilled about fundraising when I first got started either, but I learned I learned a few things that shifted my mindset and it became a whole lot easier. And I want to share some of that with you today. Now, the truth that I work from is when you raise more money, you can change more lives. Why is that important? Fundraising is not about raising money just so you can meet a goal. It's about raising money to save more lives. It's about raising money to help more cats, help more dogs, guinea pigs, birds, whatever your organization does. It's always about that. Keep this in mind. This is going to be super important as we go today. Now, I'll tell you right now, some of the organizations that I see struggling are the ones that focus on the money. They'll post on Facebook and say, hey, we've got a $25,000 goal, please give. There is nothing inspiring about that. If you ask people to give just so you can meet an arbitrary goal, you are going to struggle because people don't care about your arbitrary goal. If you say, help us raise $27,000 so that we can provide spay neuter to X number of animals, that's more interesting. It is always, always, always about the animals. Okay, so that's the first big shift that I want you to make. Look at that. We're not even 10 minutes in. I'm giving you a big knowledge bomb there. It's always about the animals. So when you're messaging and you're fundraising, it's always please give so that fill in the blank, whatever it is that you need to use the money for. All right, so maybe you're thinking, okay, I'm with you so far, but how do I raise money? Especially if you're just getting started. Maybe you've seen other organizations doing things, or maybe you're thinking, God, fundraising is just hard right now. I get that. What I want you to know is you are not alone. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of people just like you who are also feeling pinched. Maybe they're feeling worried or a little scared. You're not alone. I mean, look around at all the people who are here today. I guarantee you that others are thinking the same thing. Okay. So I don't know about you, but it always makes me feel better when I realize I'm not the only one feeling a certain way or struggling with something. And oh, it just makes me feel better. Now, fundraising is actually not that hard. It is about connecting people who care with causes that matter to them. So here's another shift that I want to give you when it comes to fundraising. I used to get really wound up as a new fundraiser because I felt like when someone said no, it was a reflection on me. It felt like personal rejection. Has anybody ever felt that? Yeah, some of you have. Yeah, it always felt really personal to me. And what I came to understand was there's a lot of people in the world who care about what I care about. So if I'm working with an animal shelter or a rescue group, whatever it is, there's a lot of people who care about it, but maybe it hasn't occurred to them today to give to help save an animal's life or to provide a spay neuter surgery or to do TNR or whatever you do. So when you're fundraising, all you're doing is you're reminding people who care that there's a cause they can support. You as a fundraiser are simply the conduit. You're simply the one saying, hey, don't forget these animal lives matter, please give. And when you do that in a way that's inspiring, they're going to give. So that seems really simple. What could go wrong? Let's talk about this. There's a handful of things that a lot of organizations do that cause them to struggle. And I want to share this in the hopes that if any of this resonates for you, that you can say, oh, I think we might have been doing some of that. And so you can understand and let go of that and do it a different way, do it a better way. All right, so the first one is barking up the wrong tree. What does that mean? That means you're chasing opportunities that are just not going to work out. They're not going to pan out. There's so many ways that that can work. One might be, oh, we need more corporate donors. Let's go get the list from the Chamber of Commerce. We'll mail everybody a letter and we'll get millions. Doesn't work. I bet some of you have tried that. Doesn't work. You know why? Go back to this. Remember that we're trying to connect people who care with your cause that matters to them. When you send out a cold letter, you have no idea if those people even care about animals. So we're barking up the wrong tree. We're spending time trying to chase down a square peg to push it into a round hole, and it's just not going to work. There's easier ways to raise money. Some organizations do it backwards. And what that means is they go out, they raise as much money as they can, and then they come back and try to figure out how they want to spend it. That doesn't work either. Why? Because donors want to know roughly where their money is going. They want to know, what are you going to do with my donation? How is it going to make a difference? So now when we can say to people, hey, we're trying to raise $27,000 to provide spay neuter to X number of animals, your gift of X will cover this many animals. Now they have an idea of how their donation is going to make a difference. All right, so I'm going to put a really fine point on this if you didn't catch this. Be very clear with people about how their donation is going to make a difference, and you will raise more money. So it's not give us money, we're a good cause. About 40 years ago, you could do that, and it worked. Gosh, I was doing it 25 years ago. It was starting to change, but I could say, hey, we're the food bank or we're the homeless shelter, please give, and people did. But today, donors are much more savvy, and we have to help them understand how their donation is going to make a difference. All right. Using hope as a strategy, bad idea. Sometimes people will shy away from fundraising and they will say, well, we're going to try this thing, whatever it is, fundraiser, or we're going to send out a letter. We hope it works. Well, I'm not saying don't use hope. I love hope. I think being positively optimistic is a good thing, but you have to pair it with strategy. You have to be strategic in the things that you're going to do. You can't look at something that somebody else is doing and say, "Ooh, I hope that works for us. Let's try that." You gotta be a lot more strategic than that. One of the ones that absolutely drives me crazy is organizations that try to use rich people syndrome. What does that mean? That means they say, hey, let's rent a list of everybody who lives in Sequoia Hills. We'll mail them a letter and they'll give money. Well, Sequoia Hills in Knoxville, Tennessee is the neighborhood where a lot of rich people live. Like, that's your old money. Can you rent a list and mail a letter to Sequoia Hills? Absolutely. Is it going to give you the results that you're hoping for? Probably not. Probably not, because we don't know anything about those people. Do they like animals? Are they direct mail responsive? We don't know. So we're throwing something into a black hole and seeing what happens there. So I'm just curious, did any of those resonate with you? Type in the chat and let me know. Have you, and you don't even have to tell me which one unless you just want to. If you want to type in and say, yeah, we've used hope as a strategy, or yep, I've tried rich people syndrome. I'm just curious. Ah, Misha, excellent. They've tried them all. Perfect. I'm going to guess even if you don't type anything in, you've probably tried some of them or feel a little guilty of, yeah, we've done some of that. I get that. We all have. Especially when we're new, we try a lot of stuff because we haven't learned any other way to do it yet. So hopefully you're all going to learn some really cool stuff today. Yes, Stephanie's tried them all. Kelly's barked up the wrong tree. Eileen tried them all. Yeah, this kind of stuff just doesn't work. And I get it. I think the hard thing is sometimes we see another organization doing something like on Facebook. They're doing a Facebook fundraiser and it looks like it's going really well. And we think, well, gosh, we should be able to do that too. Without understanding the strategy behind what somebody else was doing, it is very difficult for us to repeat that. We need to understand what their purpose was, what their goal was, why they were doing what they were doing. Yeah, it just doesn't work. Kimberly Hoover, spot on. Generic begging doesn't help. Specific targeted requests, especially to get recurring donations. Absolutely. Gold star. Yep. Yes, Kimberly, we may be nonprofits, but we have to act like a business. You're absolutely right. Yeah, Misha is saying we're easier to ask for things than money. And I'll tell you why that works. Just kind of sidebar here. People love to fill a hole. If there's a hole in the ground, people like to fill it up. Here's what I mean about that when it comes to fundraising. If you were to say, and you've all probably done this, hey, we're out of puppy chow and we use this brand. Here's the link to Amazon. What happens when you post that on Facebook? A couple of days later, you're going to get puppy chow showing up on your doorstep because people like giving stuff. I don't know why that is. I just know that it is. Think about every time there's a natural disaster. What do? They have to say, please stop sending stuff. We've got tractor trailer loads of bottled water and clothes and cleaning supplies and all the things we need. People like to give stuff. I don't know why that is. I just know that it is. All right, so here's some good news. If you have tried some things that are not working, the good news is it's actually pretty easy to change. You can pivot pretty quickly and start to use strategies and techniques that are going to work. All right, I want to talk real quick about the difference between an underfunded organization and a fully funded organization. This is important because there's some more mindset here. If I can get you thinking about this in the right way and get you using the right strategy, you are going to raise more money, the end. That is just how this works. All right, underfunded organizations focus on the fundraisers. In fact, they will go from one event to another, to another, to another, and it's exhausting. I bet lots of you have done fundraisers. You have done events. I did a sit-down dinner for 1,000 people one time at the convention center. That was crazy. That was a lot of work. Thank goodness we raised, I don't know, like $70,000 or $80,000 from that. I would not want to do one of those a quarter or multiple times a year. It was too much work. But that's what happens with an underfunded organization. They're in reactive mode. They're living from one cash infusion to the next. There is a definite poverty mentality there where they think, well, we're nonprofit, we're supposed to struggle. That's not true. It's not true. You do not have to struggle as a nonprofit. Nonprofit is a tax status. That's all it is. It just means that if you have money left over at the end of the year, it has to go back in your programs. It cannot go into the pockets of board members or staff or anything like that. In an underfunded organization, it's all about the money. And the downside of that, the really bad part of that is they're looking for donations in the door and they don't care about where the donations came from. So what that means is they're depositing checks and they're not thinking about thank you letters and they're not thinking about updates to donors and they're not thinking about the donor's experience. All right, let me put a fine point on this too. You want to keep people giving, treat them very well. Think about the experience that a donor has when they give to your organization. What kind of thank you / receipt do they receive? How does it look? Is it boring or is it fresh and connecting? Is it hard to read? Is it easy to read? Does it give them the information they need or not? What happens after they receive that thank you receipt? What happens next? What happens after that? Think through this, and I would like literally make a timeline of if they make a donation today, how much time goes by before they get that thank you, and then what happens next, and what happens next, and what happens next. So think about this. If you're a donor, you give to an organization that you care about, let's say on this today, and then you don't receive a thank you, you don't receive any kind of updates. The next thing you get is 6 months from now, they send you another ask for money. How are you going to feel? Yeah, everybody say, wah, wah. No, we don't like it. We don't like it because now we feel like a checkbook or an ATM card. Okay, so if you have been guilty of not communicating with donors or not sending a really warm, sincere thank you, you can change that starting today. That's easy to do. All right, fully funded organizations are very focused on the donors. They understand the story of the goose and the golden egg. That if you take care of the goose, they will continue to lay golden eggs. They have a steady stream of revenue all year long because they're strategic and they've planned it out. They've got a good mix of diversified revenue streams, so they don't have all their eggs in one basket. They're committed to doing whatever it takes to be successful, and they're looking big picture. And to Kimberly's point earlier, they are acting like a business. They're all about the relationship and future donations, not the donation that just came in the door. So guess what kinds of things those organizations are doing? They've got a really wonderful thank you. And in fact, they're changing their thank you letter every month to make sure it's fresh. They have a new donor welcome kit in place. They have a donor nurture plan in place. They are sending out regular newsletters that warm the donor's heart. So the donors feel amazing. They feel very connected. They're happy to support that organization. How do you get there? It's a matter of focusing on the donors. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. That is the secret. You want to raise more money, treat your donors like the valued partners that they are. Because truly that is what they are. They are providing the money and you're doing the work. They're your partner in saving more lives. How do you implement that? It's about stopping what you're doing long enough to think about it, to think about the experience you want your donors to have, to think about what would make them feel amazing. And it's really not hard to do. I was working with an organization not too long ago and we were talking through this and I said, okay, when was the last time you sent out a donor newsletter? And they said, I said, well, if you can't remember that, that's telling. And what did it look like? It was slapped together. I said, all right, let's think about what we want to put in the newsletter so that it satisfies the donor's need for information. Because this is not about what we want to share. This is about what the donor wants to know. So we put a short template together, literally 4 sections that takes maybe a half hour to fill out. So we made the process very easy and streamlined. Newsletters don't have to be a time suck. They can be very easy. So this is what we did with this organization. Within about 6 months, 8 months, they started having their biggest fundraisers ever. And then Giving Tuesday came along and they raised double their goal. And year end came along and they raised more than they expected. And they continue to have huge success. And so we talked about this. We got to January this year and we said, okay, why? And I'm not knocking all the success, but I want you guys to think about it and tell me, why did we have so much success? And they thought about it and they said, well, I think it's all that donor stuff you've got us doing. And I said, that's how this works. Here's another way to think about it, y'all. Yes, you have to prioritize donor experience, and sometimes that's a matter of prioritizing a newsletter. What you do now is going to show up in your results in 6 months. So if you want really big year end, now is the time to really be treating your donors with a lot of love. All right, are we getting this? Focusing on donors instead of the money makes fundraising easier. Absolutely does. Donor focus makes the difference between big bucks and small change. You can have whichever one you want. You can raise nickels and dimes, or you can get checks with lots of zeros on them. Yep. Kimberly, nice one. Planning is vital. This year is already half over. Yes, it is. Start thinking now about year end. You're absolutely right. Gold star. Okay, what donor-focused fundraising is, it's a partnership opportunity. So it's a shift in how you think about your donors. They are your partners. They're your financial backers. Treat them with a lot of love. What you need to understand is that when somebody makes a donation, it is an emotional high for that person. They get to feel good that they just clicked the donate button or wrote you a check. It's transformational for the donor and for the charity. So if somebody writes you $1 million check, that's pretty exciting for you, yes? Get $1 million? Well, it's very exciting for the donor too, because they get to do something that really, really matters. And that helps them fulfill their own personal philanthropic desire. Usually donor-focused fundraising results in large donations, which is very exciting. What I love is when I'm talking to a client and they say, oh my gosh, we got this random $10,000 check this week. We don't know where it came from. That is so much fun. And when we start trying to be detectives to figure out what did we do that motivated or inspired somebody to give that big. Donor-focused fundraising is not begging. It's not arm twisting. It's not hitting people up. Fundraising is not a contact sport. We don't hit people. And it's not about selling stuff. Selling stuff has a place. You might have t-shirts that everybody in your community loves, and that's great. Do that because now you've got walking billboards around town. But you kind of want to do that as part of your marketing plan, not necessarily part of your fundraising plan. Now, I know organizations that make $30,000 to $50,000 on a calendar sale. They're selling calendars, which just blows my mind. I've seen photo contests. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff that worked that really wasn't truly philanthropy. And if you've got something like that, great. Keep doing it because you probably need that as a slice of your pie. But what I don't want you to do is to think, oh, well, we need to sell candles, calendars, t-shirts, blah, 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 in order to raise the money we need to operate. You're never going to fully fund your organization with that kind of thinking. All right, so let's talk about what does work. Now we've hit a lot of what doesn't. As I mentioned before, I've been doing this a long time. And I had a pretty steep learning curve the first few years that I was involved in fundraising. And back then, there weren't webinars, there were barely books. You could barely get a workshop a couple of times a year at your local United Way. There just weren't a lot of resources. And so I had to figure stuff out myself. Thankfully, I saw that as a challenge and I said, well, how hard can this be? Let me figure it out. And I did. I've raised millions for organizations as their fundraiser over the years. And when I looked back at everything, I saw that there was a commonality. And this is it. When I approached the right people at the right time with the right message, and I had a plan, so I was being very strategic, I got a donation every single time. Every time. You can do this too. So what I want to do is break some of this down for you about who are the right people and what is the right message and how do you know about timing. So we're going to dig into this a little bit. Becky Roy is the founder and executive director at Draft Gratitude. They save great big old draft horses. She's based in New Hampshire. She had just started her organization when she called me several years ago and she was paying for everything out of pocket. Have any of you ever done that? Paid for stuff out of your own pocket for your organization? I figured as much. We do that because we care. And she cared, but she got to the point where she said, this is not sustainable long term. I need to build a donor base. I need to figure out fundraising. I said, okay. It took us maybe 3 months, 4 months, and she called and said, guess what? The nonprofit is now paying for itself. And she has never had to put another dime into her organization. She used exactly what I'm about to show you with the right people, right message, right time. About 4 years ago, she called and said, guess what? I love it when some of my favorite clients do this. She said, we raised over $100,000 last year for the first time. That was very exciting. So I share this story so that anybody who's here that has a very small organization, or it's just you, or it's all volunteer, or you're the founder, you can grow it just like Becky. If Becky were here, she would tell you, yes, it's work, and that she's just an ordinary person. Yes, there are things that I think are special about Becky, but she would say, look, I'm just a normal person and I use the stuff and it works. You can do this too. All right, so let's break this down. Right people, right message, right time. Who are the right people? Well, this is important. This is important. So here's another mindset shift for you. I really should make a handout of like, here are all the mindset shifts I need you to make if you want to raise a lot of money. This one was hard for me. I spent 5 years at my local food bank, and in my thinking, everybody ought to care about neighbors going hungry. Just to me, that's what you do. You care. If I were in your shoes, I would say everybody ought to care about animals. The end. Like this is something we all believe strongly in. But here's the truth of it. Not everybody does. Not everybody cares about animals. Not everybody gives to charity. So we have to laser in on those people. Let's go back to this example where we're trying to find people who care and connect them with the cause that matters. We got to find these people who care. Because when we do that, we start building our donor base with people who think that taking care of animals is a good idea and it's a passion for them. You're going to raise money hand over fist. So I want to dig into this a little bit. Having a big loyal donor base is like being able to create a mountain of cash whenever you need it. Again, if you're really thinking through donor experience, you're being mindful of giving them the best experience you can, you're going to be able to ask whenever you have a need and they're going to give. If you treat your donors like ATMs, you're not going to have that experience. What can get in your way? 3 things. First one is the passion myth. I worked with a founder one time who said, well, we need to find people who are as passionate about taking care of animals as I am. And I said, do we really? Or do we need to just find people who care? I don't think they have to be crazy passionate to give donations. If they want to give you $1,000, do you care what their passion level is? No. We need to find people who care. They don't have to be over the top passionate. Broad appeal is another one. That's what I was talking about a minute ago when I thought, well, everybody ought to care about animals. Well, unfortunately, they don't. So we have to be careful about assuming that if we put a billboard up on the side of the interstate, that everybody's going to see it and everybody's going to want to give, because it just doesn't work that way. The worst thing is making it all about you. So that's where every message and every appeal that we send out says we, us, and our. Those are the 3 worst words to use in fundraising. Write that down. We, us, and our are 3 words you don't want to use a lot in fundraising. What you want to do is flip that. So instead of saying, we need $27,000 to spay and neuter 5 jillion animals, you say, you can make a huge difference and prevent unwanted animals by sponsoring a spay neuter for a single dog or cat. So it's just about flipping the script where you use you, your, and yours instead of we, us, and our. So that's a really simple change to make. You're just flipping. Our tendency is to think, I'm trying to make the budget work. I need $50,000. So let me just throw out an appeal here and I'll ask for $50,000. We need $50,000. That's not going to work. We have to flip that script and say, you can make a difference by providing however much it is to spay or neuter 1 dog or cat. You're making a huge difference for that 1 animal, plus you're preventing unwanted litters. You can be the hero. That kind of appeal is going to work. All right, building your donor base. I just built a whole course around finding new donors. There are people already around you who would give if you thought to ask them. So this is one of my favorite graphics here, where we can look at your donor base in terms of a bullseye. So the people who are the closest to your organization, you might consider your organization's family. That's your board, your volunteers, maybe your adopters, your fosters. Those ones that are in the red dot all the way in the middle are the ones who are most likely to care. So if you have not gotten donations from your board members, you need to ask. If you have not asked your volunteers to give, you need to ask them. If you have not given your fosters a chance to give, you need to ask them. Now, I know I'm a little bit psychic and I just felt somebody go, what? We can't ask fosters to give. They're already doing so much for the animals. But you can, because you may have somebody who would want to give if they knew what the need was. So what you do is you give them the opportunity to give, and if they say, I am already doing everything I can financially for the animals that I'm taking care of, great. You make a note in your donor software not to ask that person for money, and off you go. It's that simple. That simple. If you don't have a good donor tracking software, you need to get one. You need to get one. All right, so what we do with this model is we start in the middle and we work our way out. So if you want some low-hanging fruit on where to find new donors, look at who's already around you that you have not asked for money. Then think about people who have interacted with you but not given. That could be adopters. That could be people who have attended your event. If you have a thrift store, it could be shoppers in your store. I remember working with the Humane Society in Dayton, Ohio several years ago, and we were trying to figure out easy ways to build their donor base. Well, they have a very nice facility, and they had They had a really nice reception area. So when you first walked in, you write your name and your email in this book, and then you either go right for cats or left for dogs. It was really cute. So I remember sitting with their development director and I said, "What do you do with all those names?" Because not everybody who comes through adopts. She said, "Actually, we might get a couple hundred people a day come in to look at animals, but only adopt maybe a dozen or so." I said, "What are you doing with those names?" She said, "What?" I said, "If they come in here looking to adopt an animal, that tells me they care about animals. So why are we not scraping all those names of people who don't adopt and emailing them to ask them to help take care of the animals who are still here until they get adopted? Because chances are really good that they will say yes." And she said, "Oh my gosh, we never thought of that." We added thousands of names a year to their donor family just with that one change. So I challenge you to look around. What do you got? What are you doing that you just haven't thought about? I think adoption events are another very overlooked place to find new supporters. Because the truth is, if somebody's going to stand in a PetSmart and talk to you for a half hour about a dog, they really care. And if they say, "Well, I'm just not sure now's the right time," don't let them walk away. Say, "Would you be interested in making a donation to help take care of this animal until we find a forever home?" Have a form or a QR code right there. Boom, you'll get new donations. Stephanie's asking about donor tracking software. There's two or three that I really like. Let me see if I can type those in here for you. Little Green Light is one that I absolutely love. It's pretty easy to use, very affordable. Donor Doc is another one, and Bloomerang is another good one. So I just put those all in there. Stephanie, yes, you should get permission from people before you contact them. Now, here's what you could do. Like in the example of Dayton Humane, where we've got all these people who are signing in, you could simply put something at the top that says, "If you don't adopt today, we will reach out to you with other ways you can support animal care activities." That's an easy way to let them know that you're going to be communicating with them. You could also send one email. The very first email could say, "So sorry you didn't find your forever friend. We would love your support. Click here if you would like to be part of our mailing list." And that would be a way to let them for sure opt in, which would be a better way to do it. Somebody's asking about, how do I feel about Donor Perfect? It's not my favorite. I think they've changed it, but the last time I had my hands in Donor Perfect was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was using a very old tag and pack format for databases, which I think is so outdated. I didn't care for it. Frankly, I just sent somebody to buy donor software like 2 weeks ago, and I told them to get Donor Doc. It's fairly new and it has everything you need in it. Like, you can not only track donor information, you have texting abilities from inside the software, you have email ability from inside the software, you have the ability to track donor experience in a lot of detail, tag certain members to say, "This person needs a thank you note, this person needs a phone call," and so forth. It is robust, robust. And I love that it has so much in it that helps you manage a good donor experience. All right. There's so much I could teach you about finding new donors, but I want you to start thinking about this. Think about who's already around you that you could ask today to support your nonprofit's work. Finding new donors is an activity that is ongoing. There's probably people already around you that you could ask. Jesse Miller runs an organization called Epic Outreach in Jacksonville, Florida. And I met Jessie before she had even applied for her 501(c)(3). She started her nonprofit. Her desire was to teach people about, she really wants to do humane education and teach people about compassion for animals. And the way she does that is she has a farm animal sanctuary, and she also does some fostering and assists other rescues, especially with transportation and things. It's pretty cool. Jessie was very afraid to ask people for money. And what I had her do, because she was very connected to a lot of people, especially on Facebook, I had her go ahead and post on Facebook what was going on at the sanctuary and ask for support. She was terrified. And guess what happened? She asked and she didn't die. And people started giving. And then she would share the story. So she was very focused on donor experience, especially through social media. She shared stories and more stories and video and pictures, and people fell in love with what she was doing at Epic Outreach. And now, anytime she wants to raise money, she throws a fundraiser on Facebook and she can raise hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in 24 hours, just like that. So part of it is what she's doing when she's not asking. Part of it is the behind the scenes stuff that she shares. A whole lot of it is her being very focused on donor journey. And people feel like they know her. Yes, Kimberly, people want to be part of a community, even if only virtually. I'll say we because I give Jessie some money every now and again. I love the wins. I love that she shares when things are frustrating and when she's tired. She'll share that she gets calls about rescuing pigs on the regular, and you just can't save them all. And so she talks about how hard that is and what a toll that takes on her as a founder for this organization. That vulnerability makes donors fall in love and they want to do more. You can find her if you want to see examples of really good Facebook fundraisers. Go look up Epic Outreach on Facebook and follow her. She is the queen and she does a beautiful job of it. And she will tell you that she loves fundraising now. She has gotten it about connecting people with who care with a cause that they can get behind, and she loves giving people that opportunity. All right, part number 2 in right people, right message, right time. Who knows what restaurant this is? It's Cheesecake Factory. It's one of my favorites. I've been into a lot of cheesecake factories around the country, and one of the things that I notice is it doesn't matter what city I'm in, that case is right up front, right when you walk in the door. So you walk in, you put your name on the list, you go over, you start drooling on the case to see which kind of cheesecake you want, right? And the only thing that drags you away from that is when they tell you your table is ready. So why do they do that? Why do they put that case right up front? They don't have to do that, but they chose to. You know why? Well, number one, that is one of the places where they make a lot of money. If you've been in and bought a slice of cheesecake, you know that they're not cheap. That's exactly right. Kimberly says they get your mouth watering. They lead with something delicious. They have you deciding on your dessert before you even look at the menu. So they lead with something delicious. We have to do that too when it comes to fundraising. Don't make donors burn calories trying to figure out what you want them to do. What does that mean? Sometimes I see emails or letters come through that I can't figure out what they are. I can't figure out if it's a thank you, an update, a request for money. I don't know what the organization wants. I'm very confused. And guess what? A confused mind always says no. A confused mind always says no. So if you confuse donors, if you're not crystal clear, they're gonna throw the letter away, or they're gonna just delete the email and they're gonna move on to something else. Yes, very much, Kimberly. People need to be told where to go and what to do. That's why a good email is going to say, click here to give, and then have a link so that it is crystal clear what to do. Sometimes people say, gosh, really? Do we want to treat donors like they're dumb? No, it's not about treating them like they're dumb. It's about making it easy for them. The easier it is to understand, the easier it is to know exactly what to do to take action, the more likely people are going to do what we want them to do. Here's what gets in the way. Self-centeredness. This is when we're all about we, us, and our, and our messaging is like some kind of crazy fundraising French. Or we talk about our existence instead of impact. We will say, we need this much to meet our year-end goal. We need this much to make a budget. Donors don't care about your existence. They care about what you're doing that matters. That's why we always talk about the animals. Always, always, always. So we never just say, please give because, hey, we're a good nonprofit. Your gift is going to provide spay-neuter surgery to an animal, blah, 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 blah. We also have to be really careful of jargon breath. I have found this for myself and for others. When I was new to fundraising, I used a lot of fancy words because it made me think that I was being smart. I was coming across as smart, and somehow that would make things more credible. It actually doesn't work that way. If you use any kind of big words, jargon, acronyms, slang, any of that kind of stuff that people don't understand, they are going to tune out. So we have to be very careful. Even if you're writing something and you just say, hey, our TNR program, blah, blah, blah. You got to remember that there is somebody, at least one somebody in your audience who does not know what TNR is. So we have to make sure that we're using conversational language that anybody can understand. All right, so here's an example that I think will help a lot. This is a jargoned up version of a very common phrase. See if you can figure out what this really says. Members of an avian species of identical plumage congregate. And if you said birds of a feather flock together, you're exactly right. Yeah, see that? Why don't we just be conversational? We don't need to use all the big words. Here's another one. It is impossible to indoctrinate a superannuated canine in innovative maneuvers. I love that word, superannuated. What does this mean? Can't teach an old dog a new trick. One more, just because I think these are fun. Freedom from incrustations of grime is contiguous to possessing divine attributes. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Keep your messaging, your appeals, your social posts, blog posts, keep everything very simple. No slang, no jargon, no acronyms, because people don't know what it means. So what we have to do is make messaging all about them and what they will understand. Now, I want to run through a concept that I call core number. And I find that this works every single time in helping people understand how their donation is going to make a difference and making it about them. Your core number is basically what it costs you to deliver a unit of service. So let's say your unit of service is 1 day and night of care for one animal. So if you start playing with these numbers, you can get this down to a very small number. My example is, let's say you had estimated total expenses last year of $95,000 and you adopted out 1,500 dogs. Well, that's easy enough to do that math. So 95,000 divided by 1,500 is $63.33 per dog. So we could say to people, your gift of $63.33 will take care of one dog who is in our shelter. But 63.33 feels like a lot, yes? We want a smaller number. So what if we say, what's the average length of stay for dogs at your place, at your shelter, or in your rescue? Well, let's just assume we have 14-day length of stay. So now we can take 63.33, divide that by 14, and for $4.52, a donor can provide 1 day of care for one animal. Now we're talking. Now we're talking, because $4.52 is a very easy yes for most people. Would you agree with that? Yeah, it works really well. So here's a couple of examples. $6.20 a day to feed, shelter, and care for a dog. $35.01 per month for spay-neuter surgery. Why not just round that to $35? Why $35.01? There's a weird piece of psychology at play here. When you use the weird number, it's more believable. When you use $6.20, somebody, if whether they realize it or not, they're thinking, you did the math, you know your numbers, and that builds instant trust. So if it's just $6 a day, I question it. Now, of course, I do this all day long, every day. The weird number builds trust. Trust me on that. Now, how can you use that? Well, $6.20 actually is what we calculated at the Humane Society of Southeast Missouri several years ago, and we used that in recruiting monthly donors. We said your monthly gift of $6.20 will provide a day's worth of care. We said, well, the first 4 days we're going to call the intake period. So 620 times 4 is $24.80. And you can see the boxes there that somebody could give a day of care, the first 4 days of care, a week, or the entire stay, which I think was like 21 days or some such thing. Yeah, Kimberly, if you're watching TV and you see a commercial for like ASPCA or whatever, guarantee there's a lot of strategy and psychology that has gone into their ask. Study those. Study those. Now, I know we all see those ASPCA commercials. We can't handle it because they're just a little too much. Those are not meant for us. Those commercials are meant for people who don't have the passion that we do. And the strength of that emotion pulls those people closer in and they're willing to give. If you see the same kind of commercial over and over, like we have all seen those for years, it's because it works. Do you have to do that? No, you don't. There are other ways that you can raise money. So the big question about finding the right message is, what delicious thing are you asking people to support? Remember, Cheesecake Factory leads with that delicious looking cheesecake. What are you leading with? Use the core number. Go calculate that. If you need help, reach out. Happy to help you. The only time it gets a little dicey is if you're doing several things that are very, very different. So if you have, let's say, whether it's foster based or in a shelter, you're taking care of animals and you're doing TNR and you're doing spay neuter and you're doing something else. That can be a little difficult to figure out what the unit of service is. And in that case, I would calculate it differently for all three of those things, because you're probably going to need to do some different fundraising, because a high volume, low cost spay neuter clinic is real different than TNR. And there may even be segments of your donor base that lean toward one or the other of those. And the more you can start to segment people, the easier it is to talk to the ones who are most likely to care. All right. Adopt a Dog is in Armonk, New York. I worked with them several years ago, and we put a lot of this stuff into practice. We calculated their core number, which came out to be $50 and something. They were very upset about that. And I said, okay, let's talk about why it was like $51 and something, 53, I don't remember exactly. So I said, well, let's talk about that. At that time, they were pulling dogs from area shelters that had significant behavioral and medical issues. Now, you guys tell me, what comes with significant behavioral and medical issues? Significant vet bills. They had a couple of trainers on staff to help deal with the training issues. And so once we could help people understand why it cost what it did, people gave like crazy. It was not a problem. So as long as we were very clear in our messaging around why, people gave. The really fun thing was I'd started with them in November. We did a very successful Giving Tuesday campaign. And then a year-end campaign, we rolled around. They had a county giving day in like March or April, I think. And we got up into May, and the director says to me, "We're in the black." And I'm like, and what does that mean? So if you don't know what that means, that's an accounting term. If you're in the red, that means you are negative. And if you are in the black, you've got money. She said, "We're in the black." I'm like, when? And what do I need to know about that? She said, "We never have money this time of year. We're always in the red in the spring." I said, okay, well, number one, we're going to celebrate that you're in the black, but why do you think that is? And she said, well, it's all that donor stuff you've got us doing. Which I'm like, that's two different people who have called it donor stuff. I don't really get that, but whatever, keep doing it. They had their board engaged. They had board members who were calling and making thank you calls and writing thank you notes. Donors felt like they were part of the team. They were really focused on donor journey, and it was beautiful. It worked, and they were using that core number. All right, let's talk about the third piece of right people, right message, right time. What do you think is happening in this picture? Is that their first date? Probably not. Looks like they're either about to get married or just got married. Yeah? Yeah. What happens before two people can get married? You have to date, right? Don't we normally do this? I mean, think about for yourself, your own experience or people around you. We meet somebody, we spend time with them to get to know them, decide do we like them, and it takes time. It's a process, right? We're used to how relationships grow organically. And in a romantic relationship, it can culminate in a marriage. So what we have to do is learn from our own experience of building relationships how to apply that to our work with donors. It's really not that different. By the way, that's my daughter. They got married about 7 or 8 years ago. So let's talk about the right time. When is the right time? Well, sometimes people think it's a season. Now, no question, fourth quarter of the year, October, November, December, absolutely you can raise more money during that time of year than any other time of year. No question. But I want to go a little deeper. Fundraising is not just when you ask, it's what happens in between the asks. So if we're very focused on donor journey, we have to think about what we're doing when we're not asking. There's this thing called the fundraising cycle. Asking is only one part of it, followed by thanking the donor really well. You have to do it well. It can't be a half-baked thank you that is the default language that came with your software. It's got to be a really good thank you. It has to warm the donor's heart. And then we have to follow up with an update, and that can be done in a newsletter. That could be a postcard. It could be a phone call. It could be a lot of different things, but people like to know what happened next. So if you do an appeal, if you send out an appeal that says we need to raise $27,000 so we can do spay-neuter surgeries for these animals, then you may want to come back later and say, hey, we want to just thank everybody who gave in support of spay-neuter. So far this year, we've been able to do this many surgeries, which prevented this many unwanted litters. See where that goes? Now you're doing a little bit of education and helping people feel really good about giving. It's all about the relationship, not the transaction. Donors, well, when you spend some time and get to know them, they're lovely people, most of them. They really care about what you're doing. You know you've nailed it when a donor says to you, how else can I help? What do you need? That's when you know you've nailed it. When they start asking you, what do you need? Just keep them in the loop. This is not hard. A good thank you, a really good newsletter. I wanted to show you this example. This is from Esther Neonatal Kitten Alliance over in Asheville. Andy Bingham is their director, and she is brilliant. She's another one that I would really encourage you go make a $5 donation on her website and just watch what happens. Watch what she does. Watch her email communications because they are spectacular. She's very, very good at this. She sent this out. This was a postcard that she sent in the summer, just as an update and a thank you. So no ask, just we call this a warm touch. She has had people give in response to her warm touches. Yeah, Kimberly, isn't that amazing? Safe and loved, thanks to you. We call that hero language. We have made the donor the hero. You can do this too. We have to think about the donor relationship like this piggy bank, that every time we make the donor feel good with a photo, a story, a video, we're making a deposit. Every time we ask, whether we're asking for money, buy a ticket, we need volunteers, we need fosters, whatever the ask is, doesn't matter, we're making a withdrawal. Now, you don't have to be an accountant to know that you got to make more deposits than withdrawals to keep that account open. If you ask more than you're depositing, if you ask more than you are making the donor feel good, the donor's going to leave. It's that simple. So this is a very easy pivot you can make. And that is to simply look at the next 6.5 months to think about what you have planned, when you're asking, and what you're doing in between the asks to make people feel good. If you don't have a plan, get a plan. This is from Ronchar Ranch Draft Horse Rescue. And this is a warm touch that I thought was beautiful. Lydia Ellsworth is the director there, and she does a beautiful job. Look how short this email is. Sandy, I hope this video warms your heart as much as your support warms Abe and Louie's. Abe and Louie are these two horses. That's it. Click here to watch the video. That is a lovely warm touch. Super easy. Just a little video of what's going on. No ask. All right, so we are adding value. When you send out something with no ask in it that warms the donor's heart, you are adding value. You can build trust very easily just by being very open and willing to share information. This is from Adopt a Dog's website. The first time I saw this, I squealed. I was so excited because yes, I'm a fundraising nerd, and they openly put their financial statements and their 990s on their website. You can do this too. Your 990 is public information anyway. Be proactive about that. Put it on your website where people can find it if they're interested. That's easy, and that will build trust instantly. You also have to cultivate interest. So you have to be the one to take the step to remind your donors and all your supporters and prospects why your organization's work matters. Easiest way to do that is with the newsletter. I wanted to show you this because even if you can't read it, you can see that there's 4 short sections. So that's Draft Gratitude. In my opinion, this is the best newsletter I've ever seen. It is always short. Almost all donors are reading your newsletter on their phone. So I can pull this up on my phone. I can read it in about 10 to 15 seconds. And I always walk away from it thinking, you do such good work. And that's exactly what you want from your newsletter. You want people to go, oh, that's awesome. They're doing great. That's the whole point. Just to love on your donors. You can do this too. This is not rocket science. And what I love about a very short newsletter, if you set this template up, I'm pointing over here because it's on this monitor. You can set this up in MailChimp or Constant Contact and make it super, super easy for yourself. Because when you go to write this, you don't need a whole lot of words. You need like 2 or 3 sentences for a story and 2 or 3 sentences for an update. And then if there's a save the date or a thanks to, you plop those in and you're done. Dunsky. Move on to the next thing. It doesn't take a whole lot. Planning is key. When you start putting your plan together, you want to stay away from, here's where we're being strategic, stay away from nickel and dime activities. What's a nickel and dime activity? I bet you can guess. It only raises nickels and dimes. So it is, the return on that investment is not worth the time that you put into it. You know what I'm talking about. You've all done these kinds of fundraisers where you get done and your heart sinks because you just worked and worked and worked and you barely raised $200. I was on a board one time for horse rescue and they were doing this stuff. The worst of it is Buffalo Wild Wings night. Yeah, we're gonna do this Buffalo Wild Wings night. Take this flyer in. Thank you, people who are laughing. Take this flyer in and go have dinner, and they'll give us a percentage of the proceeds. You work your tail off, and then you get like $150 from it. So at this board meeting, they said, well, we know we're going to do Buffalo Wild Wings night. I said, how much do we normally make on those? Oh, a couple $100. I said, how about this? We're not doing that, and I'm going to write you a check for $200. We're done. We're not doing that. And the rest of the board members said, oh, thank you. Thank you. I hate those things. So we decided that night that if we couldn't see a way to raise at least $1,000, we weren't doing it. So we put a boundary in place as a board and we said fundraisers have to make at least $1,000 or it's not worth our time. Unless it is a third-party fundraiser. If somebody else approaches you, like a Rotary Club or a church group, school group, whatever, and they want to do something for you and They want to use your name, they're going to give you the money. That's different. That's a third-party fundraiser. So stay away from nickel and dime activities. Shiny ball syndrome. What is shiny ball syndrome? That's when you get really enamored with the latest thing and you think, oh my gosh, TikTok, it's such a huge thing. We got to be on TikTok. We'll raise millions. That's shiny ball syndrome. You don't necessarily want to go after whatever the latest thing is. You want to do the thing that's going to work for you. Do the thing that's going to work. Social media is so easy to think, oh gosh, I wish I had a nickel for every time I've heard this. Oh, if we could just get every one of our followers on Facebook to give us $1, we'd be set. Well, it works on paper. It doesn't work in practice. I've never seen it work. There's a whole lot of reasons. So be careful about shiny ball syndrome. Be careful about copycatitis. I've seen this too, where a well-meaning board member or volunteer comes in and says, oh my gosh, the fill in the blank nonprofit down the road just did a rubber duck race and they made $100,000. We should do that too. Maybe, maybe not. Thank you for your enthusiasm, well-meaning person, but we're trying to be strategic here. Now, hey, side note, be real careful about things that somebody else in the community is doing, because if it is a unique fundraiser, literally like a rubber duck race, two of them are not going to work in the same community. Like in my community, the Boys and Girls Club has been doing rubber duck race for probably 20 years. If somebody else wanted to start doing rubber duck race, it is not going to fly because there is already one out there. And if you start promoting that, you're going to confuse people really quick. So be really careful if there's a unique kind of thing and somebody else is already doing one. Ooh, be very careful about that. All right, I do have a free download for you. Go grab this. Getfullyfunded.com/plan. This is it is our one-page quick and simple fundraising plan that if you don't have anything else, this will help you get started at least for the next 6 months, just to map out where are you asking for money and what are you doing in between the asks. That is super important. If you don't take anything else away from today, I want you to really think about that. And here it is all boiled down. If you're trying to figure out how often you can ask for money, you actually can ask fairly often, as long as in between the asks you have 3 really good, warm, juicy communications that make the donors feel good. So that's why I want you to use a plan and map this out. What are you doing when you're not asking? If you're doing a good job of communicating, then your donors are going to welcome your next appeal. They will welcome the opportunity to support you. They will give at Giving Tuesday. They will give at year end. You will raise the money you need. Are you getting this? It's all about donor experience. It's all about being strategic and mapping it all out. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. So what do you do now? Well, time to think about what you want to do next. Time to maybe set some goals around what you've learned. Maybe you say, ooh, I love that 3-to-1 ratio. I'm going to download that plan. I'm going to really think about donor experience. Whatever you decide to do, write it down. If you don't write it down, it's not real. It's in your head. Plans in your head have no accountability. They are too easily changed. You will justify your way out of them. Write them down. Share them with somebody. Okay? And then get busy on it because you got a lot to do. What I'd love for you to do is commit to this. This is a system for fundraising that absolutely works. And if you say, you know what, I love this, I've given you a lot of very simple shifts today, some really easy pivots that you can make that'll make a huge difference. So I'm going to challenge you to commit to a fundraising system that works. Now, let me know in the chat, have you gotten at least one good idea today that you can use right away? Have you gotten a nugget and you can just type in and say yes or no? Hopefully nobody says no. That would make my trainer heart hurt if you didn't get any good idea. Okay, yes, learned a lot, way more. Okay, good. Yes, good, good, Mary. All right, mission accomplished then. Makes my trainer heart happy. Now, I've got a resource that I want to share with you because I know that some of you may be thinking, I love this and I'm not sure where to start to implement. Or maybe you're thinking, what exactly would this look like? Or gosh, what if I wanted to change my thank you letter? What is some good thank you letter text? Or what does a good donor nurture plan look like? Or what can I see a closer look at some newsletters? I want to share a resource with you that has going to give you access to all of that. And then we're going to do some Q&A. So if you've got questions, go ahead and be thinking about that. I'll stick around. All right. So we have a program called Fundraising TV, and it's a self-guided tour through every single thing you need to know about fundraising to do it in a donor-based way. Everything is delivered in small little bites, so it doesn't take a lot of time and you get a lot of support with it. So there's three main pieces to it. The first is the Fundraising Mastery Video Vault. So you're going to get 200 plus on-demand video lessons. The videos are about 10 to 12 minutes each. So if you say, I really want to learn how to do a good donor newsletter, great. Make yourself a cup of coffee, fire up that video, and you can watch it while you drink your coffee. There's tons of handouts and downloads that have templates and worksheets and cheat sheets and samples, everything that you need to get started. Tons of what we call fundraising power tools. So every possible checklist, cheat sheet, and template that I can give you, I give you. We have something that we love called swipe files. Swipe files are curated examples, and we have a bunch that are animal welfare only. So if you say, I want to see some examples of animal welfare newsletters, I got you covered. And I'm going to point you towards some other organizations where you can see what they're doing. You're going to get a weekly motivation boost from me. So every Monday morning, you're going to get an email that's really short where I'm just going to remind you that what you do matters, that this is important work, because I think we all need a little bit of encouragement. So you get access to a members only community where my whole coaching team and I are in there, and that's like 10 people, 12. I can't remember. So we're all in there to answer questions. We have mentors within the group. So we saw today Draft Gratitude. That's Becky Roy, Jesse Miller from Epic Outreach, Andy Bingham from Esther Neonatal Kitten Alliance. They are all in that group to mentor. And you can ask them questions about what they do, and they're happy to share and answer. We have other kinds of non-animal groups inside Fundraising TV as well, and sometimes you'll learn something really cool from one of them. Lots of people have had great success with Fundraising TV. It is not cheap. Working with us one-on-one is about $900 a month just to get started. We wanted to make fundraising support accessible to everybody. It's normally $49 a month. And we said, because we do so much with Virginia Federation, we love you guys. My team decided to drop it to $27 a month, which is a steal for everything you're going to get. So if you're interested, again, just wanted to share this on the chance that maybe you want a little more support, you want a little more information, you want to see some examples. The minute you sign up for Fundraising TV, you're going to have access to everything. And once you get inside, you can choose what you want to learn about. If you want to spend some time with donor communications, you can do that. You want to look at asks, you can do that. We also have a whole brand new course on finding new donors that you can dig into. There's resources for boards, volunteers, grants, events, you name it, it's in there, and we add new stuff all the time. So there's the link. It's getfullyfunded.com/VFHS, and check it out. By the way, if you get into it and you decide you don't like it, let us know. We can cancel it and refund your first payment. If you like it, it's just going to renew at $27 a month, and off to the races you go. All right. We do have a bonus for you. There's a Facebook fundraiser mastery course. So if you want to get the scoop on how to do a Facebook fundraiser like Jesse Miller does and raise the big bucks, that course is in there for you as a bonus. And I want to, the last thing I want to say before I open up for Q&A is you can do this. You got this. These are some easy changes that you can make to raise more money now. And I'll circle back to where we started, that it's a little scary right now. The economy is weird and all kinds of things that are weird. But I can tell you story after story about organizations that we support that are having their best years ever, that are raising money hand over fist, that are doing great work, and their donors are excited and giving. So I know that you can still raise a lot of money regardless of what's happening. You got this. All right. Perfect. Misha jumped right in with the first question. Do you feel grants are worth it? I find them very hard because 1,000 people apply for 4 spots kind of thing. Yes, grants can still be very worth it. Here's the secret sauce to grants. Yeah, Mary, they can be really time consuming. You want to be real strategic about which ones you go after. You want to make sure that you have what we call a 3-way fit. When you start looking at foundations to think about applying for a grant, you need to make sure that you have a geographic fit, because some of them are going to give in one area and not another. Community foundations especially tend to want to give in your area, but not outside there. So a geographic fit, a programmatic fit. So if they only want to fund TNR, but you're not doing TNR, you're not going to get money. You have to look and see, what do they say they want to fund, and you have to have a hand in glove fit for that. If you do, you've got a good shot at getting a grant. And the nice thing is, these days, ChatGPT will help you write your grant in a way that is very compelling, which kind of makes me sad, because I don't know about you, but I've done it the hard way for 20 years, like pulling words out of my head. And now you can get AI to help you with grant writing, which is really nice. All right, so we're talking about a geographic fit, a programmatic fit, and a financial fit. So what that means is, sometimes foundations will fund new programs, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they will fund salaries, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll give to capital, sometimes they won't. Every foundation is different, so you have to research to figure out what they are looking for. And when you find foundations that meet those 3 criteria, you've got a geographic fit, you've got a programmatic fit, you've got a financial fit, that is where the magic happens. Now, if you write a very compelling grant, you are probably going to get money. I don't worry too much about the competition. I worry about doing the very best that I can to convince that foundation that my organization is the best investment. Every grant you submit will teach you something, so definitely learn from them. Yeah, Kimberly's exactly right. Finding the smaller family foundations usually is a really good idea. The big ones are probably not as likely to support. Yeah, and CFC, Combined Federal Campaign, can be a really good thing. It absolutely can. What we do, I've got a couple of really good grant writers on my team. Our designated grant writer, Lisa, we always start with research. And so she will use the foundation directory online, which is under the Candid umbrella, and look for keywords. So she would be searching based on what your programs are, whether it's animal care, animal rescue, TNR, spay neuter, whatever else you got going on. If you got a pet food pantry, or you do transport or whatever. So you look by keyword, and that'll help you find foundations that want to fund the kinds of things your organization does. Then you give yourself plenty of time. You do not want to be writing grants at the last minute. It does not work out well. Give yourself plenty of time, so you got time to gather all your information. All right. Who else? Any other questions? All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you my email. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. And if you think of questions, or you need some support or whatever, let me know. Shoot me an email. All All right, so Misha's got a pet food pantry and do vaccines and microchips for the community. Any ideas on how to boost those? Do you mean on how to get more people to take advantage of the pet food pantry and the vaccines, or how to fund those? Personally, I think pet food pantries are real easy to raise money for. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. I think those are real easy to raise money for because you're talking about helping people keep their pets. Financial hardship is usually, or it can be a reason why you see owners surrender. So if you say our pet food pantry is designed to help people, it's designed to help people keep their pets through a difficult time, that sort of messaging is going to resonate. And yeah, Kimberly's right. Everybody wants to eat, keeps cats out of shelters and families together. Absolutely. So you come at it from the angle of pets are family and we don't want to lose a member of our family. That's really helpful. Vaccines and microchips can be really the same. Vaccines are about, you could take the angle that you're helping people who otherwise could not afford to keep their pet healthy. Now, and you may want to say it's a short-term kind of thing. You could be opening the door there for people to say, well, if they can't afford vaccines, they shouldn't have pets in the first place. We don't want to go there. No, you're just helping people keep their pets and keep their pets healthy. Yeah, Mary, that's a good idea. Partnering with a people food pantry. I worked with a mobile meals a few years ago that had a pet food pantry, and it was brilliant because there were so many seniors who were receiving meals who had pets, and they were giving the pet part of their food. And when the volunteers started to recognize that, the mobile meals put a pet food pantry together, and the community responded like crazy, donating all kinds of pet food. And what they would do, get like a 40-pound bag of dog food, and they have volunteers who would put it in maybe a 1-gallon Ziploc so that they could then deliver it someplace and people had food for a week or so. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. All right. I think we are at the end and we are out of time. So you guys, thank you for being here. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandy. It was so informative. I took lots of notes.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, you
Thank
guys,
you.
reach out if you've got questions. Otherwise, have a fantastic evening.
Thank you. That was great.
Yep, you're welcome.
I had to make someone else a host because I kept losing my internet.
Oh gosh.
I hope the recording turned out okay because I kept losing it. I'm actually connected to the hotspot on my phone right now. I think the internet's out completely.
Oh, bless your heart. You might need an adult beverage at the end of this day.
Or a cup of coffee, maybe.
Something. Oh my goodness. Well, this was great.
It was so great. This one thing I fall short in, that's for sure, is fundraising. So I'm definitely gonna see if we can't sign up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, so we definitely wanted to, we love fundraising TV. It's such a great program. And we definitely wanted to do a lower thing. There's probably more we could do if you want. Like it would be easy enough to pull pieces out to highlight or to do this more often, just digging into what people need.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can do lots of different things.
Okay, that sounds great. And I'll send you the call for speakers too, so you'll
Okay,
think about that for conference next year.
sounds good.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah, you too.
Enjoy your grandbabies.
You know I will. You too.
Bye-bye.